This is All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. The film Union County follows a young man named Cody who is in a court-mandated drug recovery program. He's trying to rebuild his life. He goes to meetings, he looks for work, and he reconnects with his foster brother, Jack, who is in the same program. They both face obstacles as they navigate addiction. Union County is not just the name of the film. It's a real rural pocket of Ohio, and like many places in the U.S., it was hard hit by the opioid epidemic. Cody will be played by Will Poulter, and Jack is played by Noah Centineo. They're both professional actors. The rest of the cast are real-life members of a local recovery group, and many scenes take place in a real drug court. The film marks the first feature film written and directed by Adam Meeks. He joins us now in studio. Hi, Adam.
Hey, thanks so much for having us.
Alongside actor Will Poulter. Hi, Will.
Hey, Allison. Thank you.
And Noah Centineo. Nice to meet you, Noah.
Nice to meet you.
Well, Union County will be screening at the IFC tomorrow, August 13th, until Sunday, August 16th, with Q&A sessions right after. Adam, Union County came out as a short film in 2020. You were also born in Union County. What story did you want to tell in a feature film that you couldn't do in the short?
Yeah, so I was born in Columbus, but my extended family kind of moved out over the years into the Union County area.
Like northwest of 60
exactly.
miles or so.
Yeah, and my family and I moved away when I was 6. The extended family stayed. And so when I came back to start spending time with my grandmother around 2017, 2018, I was first obviously very aware of, the kind of tragedies that were all around us at that time. Then I was introduced to the previous drug court judge at the time, and he invited me to sit in on a meeting. And I was blown away by the kind of humanity in that room and the empathy and the stories of folks getting back on their feet. And I think, what started out as a short became a larger opportunity to celebrate more of the community, to capture and observe more of the ongoing kind of day-to-day process. 12 minutes in a short is an extremely limited amount of time to kind of like get a sense of a person and a community and a place, and what I really believed in, and one of the kind of central tenets of this project was to look at the kind of day-to-day process, and even sort of spend time in the mundane, because I think the mundane is where the humanity lies and emerges from. So it felt like if we could have more time and a larger canvas, then we could spend real time with these characters, get to know them much deeper level, and spend more time with the community that, deserves celebration.
Well, how would you describe your character, Cody?
Yeah, I think Cody is sort of an amalgam of several different people who have real lived experience of, the recovery program. He is inherently quite a quiet and reserved person, I think, with a lot of sort of repressed trauma, and certainly dealing with some mental health conditions. And I think that often when we talk about substance use disorder, we are inherently talking about, mental health issues, because the two often go hand in hand. And certainly trauma nearly always plays a role in someone's relationship to substance use disorder. So that was something that Adam and I discussed at length. And of course, his relationship to substances is also entwined with his relationship to his younger brother, Jack, who he is brothers with by way of the childcare system.
Noah, this is the second film you've done with Will, right?
That's right.
You were in Warfare together. It was a great film, by the way. We had them on the show, actually. Ray Mendoza. It was really good.
Oh,
yeah, it was really good. How did that previous collaboration help you in building trust? Because you're playing brothers through the foster system, but there's an element of trust between the two of them initially.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought up trust as well. Trust is kind of maybe one of the quieter, but I think central dynamics and themes of Union County. To answer the question, Will and I getting the chance to work together on Warfare really kind of plowed the field and laid the seeds and the groundwork for our friendship brotherhood, familiarity, and like you said, trust in a way that by the time we got to Union County, there really was no inventing or acting of a brotherhood that needed to be done.
Adam, Cody is much quieter, much more reticent than Jack, is sort of like a bundle of energy. What did you want the audience to get from their characteristics, their behaviors?
Yeah, we talked about this quite a bit. How they represent and embody kind of different responses to trauma and to their own set of challenges. One way to respond to that is by kind of closing down and becoming sort of guarded and not talking about the thing. And another way of responding to that is by talking about kind of anything except the thing. And
It's true.
And I think that I wanted to. It became a way of looking at two very different psychologies and responses to what they're going through, and ultimately kind of two different ways of moving through a recovery space and dealing with what they're dealing with.
Noah, from where the film picks up, what do you think is going on with Cody and Jack's relationship?
It's quite tumultuous. They, as Will mentioned, through the foster care system, Cody's family took in Jack, and Jack started using really with Cody. Cody introduced Jack to heroin and the other drugs and experimentation. And so by the point when the film picks up is Jack is in the court-ordered program, and Cody is just out of jail now, entering the program, and this is the first time that they've seen each other in quite some time. And so they kind of are on thin ice. They don't know where they stand exactly, but they're happy to see each other, because it's been so long. And ultimately, it starts off really good and positive, and then I think they become a little bit overwhelmed by the familiarity.
Well, what do you think is going through Cody's mind when he sees Jack in the courtroom?
It's interesting. There was this element of kind of like life imitating art imitating life, in the sense that, Nora and I had spent such an intense period of time together while shooting Warfare. Like, we were doing the math on it, and we were sort of working it out. It was about 17 hours a day, every day for sort of like 2 months, and then a long period apart, and then kind of coming back together for the preparations associated with this film, and then again for the actual shooting. And so, as he spoke to earlier, the kind of brotherhood was sort of inbuilt, but then that sense of seeing someone who is so familiar to you after a long period of time kind of came very naturally. And I think there was this mix of emotions for Cody. There's comfort in the familiarity, but inherently there's a sense of danger and jeopardy around it too, because as beautiful as their relationship is as brothers, it is complicated and inherently dysfunctional by the presence of illegal substances, and that being entwined in how they grew up and how they came to sort of bond with one another.
I'm speaking with director and writer Adam Meeks, as well as actor Will Poulter and Noah Centineo, about their new feature, Union County, which follows two brothers on their journey through a court drug recovery program in rural Ohio. You can catch the film starting tomorrow at the IFC. I want to play a clip from Union County. Cody, who is in mandated court drug program, is speaking to its counselor, Annette. Is it Dio?
Dio.
All right. First of all, you got to tell us about Annette Dio.
Oh, she is a miracle. She is the program director administrator for this particular adult recovery court, and she also plays a version of herself in the film. And she is sort of the heart and soul of the recovery community. She also becomes kind of that for our film. And she's also kind of the crux or the kind of pivot point that allows both the fiction and the nonfiction in the film to work, because she can play, she can exist as herself in her work in this documentary capacity, and then she can, sit down in a fictional scene opposite Will Poulter and, hold her own. So, it wouldn't be the film without her.
Let's listen to this clip from Union County.
How you doing?
You seen Jack?
Well, first I want to talk about you. Your sister is really concerned about you.
Where's Jack?
The sober living house found Jack passed out this morning in the hallway. This is not his first violation, so we're going to send him to an intensive treatment center in Greene County. They have better tools to work with Jack.
So y'all are just gonna send him away?
We're not sending him away. He's not going to jail or prison. He's going to treatment. He's going to treatment to get better. And because he's going to treatment, it opens up a room at the sober house.
I don't really want that room.
Why not?
Because I'm fine in my car.
You're clearly not finding your car.
You clearly don't know what you're doing with us.
Oof, it's a hard scene. Will and Noah, what did you learn about acting from watching non-professionals do it?
Well, there's something kind of extraordinary in getting the opportunity to work with a community who have lived experience of the very subject matter you're trying to kind of bring attention to, and you kind of realize as an actor, like there's nothing like the real thing, you know, in terms of representing that experience. And you know, I think one of the great things about the way that Adam went about this is it was very much with not infringing on the recovery process at the top of mind, and not allowing for the process of the filmmaking to sort of add to the burden or the challenges faced by the real participants, but in getting a chance to watch the participants, you know, provide their story and work alongside them. I think I was just struck by how everyone's story is different, and there's individualism in everyone's journey as it relates to recovery, and that is a direct challenge to, I think, the stigma that exists around addiction, because once someone, you know, has the label of addict placed on them, we often run, I think, risk of oversimplifying and reducing people to that label and that stigma, and we fail to see the complex journeys and the rich textured lives that everyone lives. And we need to bear that in mind if we're going to sort of really truly extend empathy to folks in this situation.
We were fortunate enough, because of the way that Adam wanted to shoot the film, to spend ample time with participants in the program, and to even sit in on some of their meetings, their NA meetings, or their anonymous meetings. And in doing so, and also spending time with them just to speak with them, right outside of that. And in doing so, they were so willing and generous enough to share not just their lived experience, but some of their past, their darkness with us. And that takes a lot of bravery. That takes a lot of courage. And I would say that after spending the hours that we did speaking with them, and then to go and try to embody characters that are representations of them, like Will said earlier, amalgamations of them, you know, what I try to learn from it is if they can sit in a room with two strangers because of the trust that Adam's built with them and share their lives and their emotions with us and their vulnerabilities with us, hopefully we can do the same thing for them when we're playing these characters.
We'll talk more about Union County after a quick break. This is all of it. You're listening to All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. I'm speaking with director Adam Meeks and actors Will Poulter and Noah Centineo about their new feature, Union County, which follows two brothers on their journey through a court drug recovery program in rural Ohio. You can catch the film starting tomorrow at IFC. This was filmed on an indie budget and an indie time scale. What do you like about the indie schedule?
It's all I got. What I like about it is that, you know, in many ways, the restrictions and the restraints force you to know what your priorities are and what your values are, and I think it meant that we could really make sure that we were all aligned in terms of what we were after, and what our process would be going in. And, you know, it's also, it can be a kind of funny contradiction, but in some ways, less money also means less oversight and more freedom in some ways. And because there's less on the line, there's more risks you can take, and there's processes that you can go about differently. And there's the only way that we could have made a film where 30% of it is unscripted documentary is by making a film, you know, in this way without as much sort of like, you know, financial risk associated, without knowing what we would be getting. And so I fully believe in, you know, the importance of kind of like financial responsibility when you make films, but also to build in restrictions for yourself and rules and limitations, because that, you know, in a very contradictory way is where, like, you know, the intention comes through.
No, what do you like about working on an indie schedule?
It's fast, it's furious. Like Adam said, you have to know exactly what it is that you're going to prioritize in the day. I love, at least with Union County, there was not, sometimes on a larger set, there's a lot of pretending that needs to happen, or there's blue screens for CGI, or there's huge camera equipment and lights in your face, and all these different factors that kind of pull you away from trying to display truth and honesty. And on a film like Union County, you know, sometimes we didn't even know where the cameras were.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What about for you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I totally connect with that idea that the two guys have just spoken to, that, you know, it is kind of ironic, but that the restraints and the limitations are actually your friend in a way, and it does, because it causes you to kind of have to sort of prioritize, to me, what is the most important thing, which is the sort of the reality of what you're representing. And I love it. I mean, like, independent film has been so good to me. It's how I got my start. I hope I always work, you know, within independent spaces. And a really amazing reminder, and a really kind of affirming, you know, experience as it relates to independent film was taking this film on the road in Ohio and going to independent, you know, movie theaters and seeing, you know, the combination of Ohio pride and you know, independent film fanaticism. And that was just really, really special. And I think it's also incredibly special that Adam, being from the area, has been able to write, you know, something of a love letter to the place that he's from and represent it with so much humanity, and it be such a, you know, celebratory film of both the beauty that exists in the place and in the people that live there.
Adam, how did you decide on Cody's taste in music? Because we hear that early in the film.
Yeah. I love that question.
All three of us collaborated on that.
We did. The first...
Shout out Bones.
Yeah, that's right.
For sure.
The first decision was particularly that Bones song that Jack is listening to in the truck and kind of like rapping alongside Cody when they're driving to work for the first time. That was the first kind of decision around music taste in the film. And that was in an early draft of the script because it just felt like Jack, and it helped me understand Jack. Then the kind of honing in on Cody's taste in music almost came in response to that, because we felt like, what would their kind of overlap be? What's their sort of shared taste in music? And then how is Cody's version of it maybe a little bit different from Jack's as well?
Yeah.
And so we found something that was, you know, notably different, but still within the same kind of, you know, SoundCloud rap, you know, sort of genre, larger genre. And we spent plenty of time ourselves driving around Ohio in prep, listening to that music and sort of talking about that music and settling into it in different ways.
It's interesting because the characters go in different ways in the film. I won't give too much away. And part of your role, Noah, you have to play on Zoom. What skills do you need to play on Zoom?
It's such a great scene as well.
It's a great scene, which is what it caught my eye.
But we shot that on Zoom, and we shot it on Monday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the court scenes that you see in the film were shot on Monday, and Monday's the court day for all the participants in the program. So for Will and I, we were sitting in a courtroom, and for everyone else, it is their actual court date. And we didn't know when the judge was going to call us up. But when the judge does call you up, you go up, and then you kind of take a break from that reality, and we did our scene. And then after we finished, we'd sit down, and then court would resume. So it was the same with Zoom. With the Zoom court hearing, I was on a laptop, and I was sitting, and I was watching the participants, and then when it was my turn, he called me up, and I'm not really sure what skill or talent it took outside of just...
Well, it was sort of interesting because sort of the way you came forward in the Zoom, the way you were approaching the Zoom was interesting, I thought.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think Jack was in his head the whole time and just thinking and not really conscientious of the way he looked. You know, I think
That was also the last scene we filmed with you, I believe, and you had so come to embody Jack that I thought the best way to do this is just to have him do it. And so it was literally, we were in the middle of court when they were bringing in other Zoom participants, and he was, where he was staying and zoomed in. And we basically that was the one take of that too. That was Jack and the judge.
Wow. Well, how would you describe the evolution of Cody in this film?
Yeah, I think that one of the things we discussed was this idea that as Cody starts to get better and progresses through the program, you see him develop a sort of idea that's probably kind of always escaped him, or he's never really been able to hold on to, which is this idea of like self-acceptance and being on the pathway towards like self-love, which is such a critical stage to kind of get to in the process of recovery, from what I understand and what I've observed of it. And I think, the scene that sticks out to me in terms of his progress is the scene with Annette in her office, where she sort of tells him that, she's proud of him and he's doing a good job. And I think we kind of discussed the idea that he might well have gone through his entire life, that is to say, into his sort of mid-20s, and never actually had someone say that. And the reason that's interesting to me is in the context of how we regard people with a substance use disorder, we might never really afford them this kind of idea that they haven't had that. We expect people to sort of pull themselves up by their bootstraps, just say no, these kind of expressions that I think indicate that people have had more support or more sort of emotional infrastructure around them than they might have in reality. And Cody was an example of that. I think someone who, didn't have someone necessarily affirming, positive choices or leading him in the right direction for a long time. And so that was a clear sign of like growth for me in him. And it was also very, very necessary for him to keep going, to have someone like Annette say, I see the work you're doing and it's a positive thing and keep it up. Can never, I think, underestimate you can never really overstate the importance of that kind of encouragement.
You've been open about being sober at times in your life. Did that affect you on this project?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Coming to, Bell Fountain with nowhere near the same experience as any of the participants, but having my own experience with it certainly helped, I think, have a little bit of empathy.
Yeah.
And to have something personal to bring.
Yeah. The name of the movie is Union County. I've been speaking with this writer and director, Adam Meeks, as well as actor Will Poulter and Noah Centineo. You can catch the film starting tomorrow at IFC. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.